Hola, and welcome to another installment of Astrology versus Psychology. I'm Nikki DeCastro with 11th House Publishing, a neuro-subversive publishing company, nonprofit, and I'm an astrologer with 10 plus years experience of going over this stuff, and we're mashing the DSM-5 together with astrology to see what we can learn from each other. We're nearing the end of this series, just by the way. And tonight's histrionics, which is, well, I should say it's histrionics, which is, look at me, in various forms, often with a sexual connotation as we know it, but not always. And I kind of expected to see maybe Leo and definitely Venus energy in here. Venus is value, what we love and value, and feeling valued. And so that's kind of my first thoughts on it. But I'm joined here by Angela Eureka Smith.
Hello. Always happy to be here.
And Sarah Castaneda.
Hello.
And thank you for joining me, ladies. They're both fine authors themselves. If you want to talk about your work and what you do for a bit. Angela?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was actually thinking about Sarah's books. I could talk about Sarah's books, which I'm reading right now. But yeah, I write a bunch of stuff in all different genres, kind of wherever I get an invite, I will be happy to write it usually, and a lot of nonfiction and horror. And I am probably best known for horror as the Horror Writers Association president, and I publish Space and Time magazine, and I think that's it, right? And the Authortunities Hub.
Yeah.
Look at where we're sitting right now.
That's a big one.
Yeah, see, this is what I get for thinking about Sarah's book. I was like, oh, she's going to talk about her book.
Segue to Sarah, who is releasing a book very shortly.
Yes. My book is Underdog Bet. I have it. It's right here.
Always and ever on hand.
Always. Underdog Bet. It is being released on the 27th. Is that this week? That's this week.
That's tomorrow.
It's coming out tomorrow. Your Pegasus publishers. So you can go on the Pegasus website, or you can go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And yeah, it's a book of poetry. It's really good. I like it.
Yes. Both Sarah and Angela are excellent writers. So
Thank you. As is Nikki.
Yes, I should say I also have a book. The Bittersweet Empathy series that I have a couple of books out in, and I'm working on the other one, or a sequel right now. So links for all of that stuff will be below. Thumbs up if you are also an author watching this. Put your books below in the comments too. How about that? All right, so I think we're just going to start off with me sharing what histrionics is as per the DSM-5, and then we'll go into how that correlates. So histrionic personality disorder is one of the cluster Bs, which are kind of like, ooh, you're a cluster B. This one is difficult. Like, you're kind of considered more out there. And I'm not sure exactly why. I think it's because it's got more fixed energy to it, so it's more stubborn against being changed. Fixed energy tends to not want to move unless it feels like it. And that's Venus too. I mean, Venus is the goddess of love and beauty and value, and in the low form, that's not valuing the self. That's looking for validation outside of the self. Look at me. Look how beautiful I am. Look how wonderful I am. Praise me, right? And the higher octave of Venus, she has that beauty from within. She doesn't need the outside validation. It's that Empress energy. And so just knowing that's kind of so if you've been diagnosed with histrionic, this could be a journey to embrace that Venusian energy within yourself. That you don't, it doesn't have to come from outside. So we've got a pervasive pattern of excessive emotionality and attention seeking, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts with 5 or more of the following. So is uncomfortable in situations in which he or she is not the center of attention. That could also be the Leo energy as well. It can be very childlike, look at me energy in this too. But in my research into celebrities with this, I actually found Venus in every case was prominent with a little bit of the sun. So that's interesting. And it's definitely leans heavy on the Venus. Interaction with others is often characterized by inappropriate, sexually seductive, or provocative behavior. So that could be like a Venus-Mars conjunction, something like that. So Venus with the other planets is going to kind of color how this is going to come out, which of these 5 you might get diagnosed with, right? Displays rapidly shifting and shallow expression of emotions. So Venus tends to like things pleasant. That's the Libra side of Venus. I don't want to upset the apple cart, so I'm just going to keep things level. And if we don't go deep, that doesn't upset anybody, right? So it's interesting that comes up in this. And we live in a pretty shallow culture overall. So I'm like, okay. If you think about the Kardashians being blown up as an example of what young girls should be, or the Bratz dolls, stuff like that. It's like, well, why is that held up then if it's put in disorder,
Yeah, or even Barbie, like it's always been that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't ask me. I'm just a girl. That Simpsons episode. Consistently uses physical appearance to draw attention to oneself. Has a style of speech that is excessively impressionistic and lacking in detail. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. You have a
What
style?
does that mean?
A style?
Detail?
Well, maybe it is what I just said, like, right? That Stepford, like, everything's pleasant, everything's fine,
Oh.
Perhaps. Let me know if you know in the comments below. Shows self-dramatization, theatricality, and exaggerated expression of emotion. So here, if you got Venus with the moon, I would expect this maybe to be the case.
Yeah.
And is suggestible, easily influenced by others or circumstances. Again, Venus energy can be the people pleaser. The Libra energy in particular can like just want to play nice. So that suggestibility can be a reflection of that. That's that kind of catastrophization of, well, if I do this, then they won't like me, and maybe they'll abandon me. We talked about last week with the borderline, and the fear of abandonment being something that everybody really has. Like it's a human thing. And so here we see it show up in a slightly different way with, well, I'm easily influenced because then you'll like me and you'll stick around, right? Or you'll validate me. My existence is validated by you, even if it is shallow and fleeting. So considers relationships to be more intimate than they actually are. So that's interesting too, because it's like, well, what kind of intimacy? Like they don't really go into that. Like is it just a closeness? Is it a physical intimacy? There's different types, and maybe it's both. But Venus also is the planet of relationships. So getting to know that balance between self and other. So you can see, the overbalancing of both the self as being like, look at me, I am the best, most important thing in the room, and screw everybody else, to like, oh, well, naturally you must have loved me, all the boys are looking at my direction. You know what I mean? It can be, you could see how that might come up in the negative. of Venus. Again, in the positive, Venus is like, she's the goddess, right? She doesn't need any of the validation outside of it. It glows from within. And so it could be a very beautiful energy. That's my point. Venus also rules Taurus. So I expected to see some of the Taurus influence in there as well, especially being fixed with the cluster B. There's a very fixed side of Venus that when she makes up her mind, she's not changing it easily. And it keeps things harmonious and steady on the one hand. Now in the air sign element of her with Libra, there can be a shifting and a changing of personalities. The suggestibility, right? Whoever you're hanging out with that weekend is who you become, essentially, with that energy. So it depends. It's going to depend on where Venus is placed, which of these 8 you tick off. You see what I mean? So do you guys have any questions or, experience with histrionics?
I was going to say the male validation, well, it doesn't have to be male, but the validation part, the sexual validation, as you're telling me that, I'm thinking of so many girls that I grew up with, that whole sense of like, the boy likes you, now you're cool, or, and they would just mourn so much when a guy didn't like them. And I always felt like I was so confused and left out of that. Like, I didn't get why this guy thinking, I don't know, my boobs looked hot in a shirt made a difference. I never quite, but this, yeah, it's a lot. It's that energy and everything.
Well, that's actually a really good quality to have. That's like a very brave quality to have in that age group, because so many girls, that's what they base their value on,
Yeah, which is sad because our society tells us that. Our society leads that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was just unaware, because I also didn't get why they would put the posters up of the guys, because I didn't understand.
Like the boy bands.
I was just clueless. I was that tomboy that was clueless. Like, ew,
yeah.
who cares? But yeah, interesting.
I agree.
Because our society promotes this in us.
Yeah.
I had the boy band posters up on my wall because I understood that it was a thing that was expected of me in a certain age group. So I'm like, sure, I guess this one's good.
I didn't have a boy band up on my wall, but I did date a boy once for his car. I liked his car a lot. I don't know if I was histrionic or
no, and we all have all of these energies going. So the histrionic has got to get to a point of being like all consuming, or like with big problems in your life, right?
Yeah, no, it was, well, he was grounded a lot, so we didn't last very long. So I didn't get to get it right around in the car very much, so it didn't last.
But the shallowness of dating somebody for, one,
it's so terrible.
All of us can probably relate to that. Venus is a feminine energy, right? So females tend to exhibit this more.
Sorry.
Interesting, because in the dichotomy of the give and take, the equal give and take of relationships, women with prominent Venus will tend to be the givers, and they have to learn to balance that over this lifetime. And men will be the takers, and they have to learn to balance and give more.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just something that I found.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So, and it's not easy. Like, it's having to balance every part of your life. You tend to be very fascinated with other people, and material things make you feel comfortable. Venus is the finer things in life.
Yeah.
She wants that Gucci bag, right? On the one hand. But also, like in the higher octave, she doesn't want to be defined by it either. She's got work beyond it. whether it's a knockoff or a Walmart purse or whatever. But there's a sense that I have value and I deserve these things, not in a bratty way, but just because I want them.
Yeah.
So it comes from a different place. It's more of a healthy place.
Yeah.
But here we have Miley Cyrus on her ascendant. So that's the rising or the body part of the mind, body, soul that I often talk about. Mind, body, soul is kind of the core energy that I would expect something that's going to show up as a disorder to be talking to in some way. And we see that she's got a Taurus ascendant, so Taurus body, and it's directly in opposition to a whole bunch of stuff. So opposition is just like it's a hard line. It's having a hard time talking to each other. It's something that she has a hard time integrating her sense of self with her soul, with her emotional state, with her ability to communicate, with her sense of empowerment. All of these things are at odds. Like that's just a lot right there. Any one of those things is a hard thing to kind of try to balance. But in this case, we see like here I have the sense of identity, this very hefty Venus energy opposing the sun, which is also your core identity and that childlike look at me energy, that Leo that I talked about, right? And then the moon as well. So the emotional state going up and down with Mercury, like it's a mind that never stops and she's just going to say what she's feeling. You can just see her being like a wrecking ball, doing what she wants. And she makes this list because of that video. They're like, oh my goodness, she was naked. To me, I'm like, she embraced her femininity. Society, why is this a disorder? Maybe we should think about that just a little bit. Like, what is considered excessive? Because what's excessive in Iran is very different than what's excessive here in the States. So, and then her actual Venus is conjunct Uranus and Neptune here, which is adding a whole lot of sort of chaotic element to it, freedom. Also this the godlike love that I talk about with Neptune and an illusion over relationships. So she's just got a lot going on with trying to balance this energy in her life. I'm not really surprised that she's, especially trying to find her identity from a young age. So that's all. I don't know like too much about her beyond those things, but then we get Megan Fox in here. And she's got the Mars right there with her ascendant. So that sexuality, like Mars is a very sexual energy, right, in and of itself, is going to just exude off her no matter what she does. Like she can't help it. She's just drawn that way. You know what I mean? And Mars is very fiery, and we talked about it with the borderline last week too. It's scorpionic energy. So it's gonna get noticed, And with the Capricorn, she decided to take that into her own hands and use it for her advantage. Right? So I'm Megan Fox. Damn right I look good. I'm going to translate that. I'm going to own that. That is my brand. And for that, she gets put on the histrionic label. It's like, well, what do you want? Like, this is a thing, So that's just kind of an aside there. And then she's also got her Venus is talking again with the freedom-loving Uranian energy, which is just doing what she wants. It's like it gets her into trouble, but she does it anyway. She owns that femininity in her way, at her design. And then her son is talking harmoniously to that that body and that Mars. So that's going to bring out the look at me aspect. The sun, our sun, all of us need to be looked at. Like that's our inner child wanting a gold star for everything we do. We all have it some way, shape, or form. It's just how much other people see it that makes a difference. And in this case, it's also in Taurus, so it's got that Venusian energy to it, right? And her moon is in Leo. So yeah, she wants to be the center of attention, and she's owning her sexual aspects. Deal with it. Maybe that's my histrionic self, right? No, I don't have that diagnosis, for full disclosure, but I sympathize. All right. And then again, we have here Kim Kardashian, right? So she's kind of the mother of all of this. I even mentioned her before. You know, and we've got Mars here with her ascendant again. So Mars coming up more with the hypersexuality was something that I didn't really consider too much. I figured it'd be more with the Venus. Again, seeking that value, but I can also see it now that I've looked at the charts. I'm like, yeah, of course. That makes sense as well. Stepping into and owning that sexual identity. And then it's also kind of talking in a square aspect to her Venus. So that's kind of a hard angle, and something that she had to learn to integrate a little bit more is how she's viewed out there in the world for these very sexual components of herself, and how she can use that in a practical way because it's Virgo, you know. And then she's got her sun in Libra, right? So there's that Venusian Libra energy on her soul as well. Wanting to be liked, people pleasing, wanting that attention, feeling the need for that validation. Very strong in both of these ways that I just mentioned. And also very good at talking to a lot of people. Like, so I gotta give it to her. Whatever you think about Kim Kardashian, she took her situation and made it work for her. You know, and that Venus, she's like, I'm gonna this is what I get to work with. This is what I'm gonna grow. You know, Venus is very earth energy of, you know, we reap what we sow, but in kind of a good way, not unlike the karmic Saturn way. She's like the goddess of spring, right? And then Kanye West makes this list as, you know, the male, because there's a lot of females that were popped with this, unsurprisingly, right? But Kanye also, like, over the top, histrionic. And he's got Venus right here with Mars. Like, they're sitting right with each other in Taurus. Again, the Venus energy very prominent with these two.
So is that like combustible energy all sitting there?
Yeah, very much so. Hyper sexual. Oh man, and in Taurus, like we talked about last week, how Taurus is very much the sensual, physical intimacy to Scorpio's emotional intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have that Mars emotional, sexual drive energy of Scorpio in that physical intimacy. So he's kind of got both. And like loving the ladies and knowing just what to say, like that's Venus Mars, you know, just you know, get this man in the bedroom, and he probably wouldn't want for much with this energy. Now, in the negative, it can be, I got mine, I'm done, bye. Very much so. Taurus is, you know, I'm tired now and asleep before you even roll over and know what happened. So Kanye West being in the negative in many ways, I don't know, I don't want to speculate, but on the higher level of this, ooh, Lord, have mercy. So that's the celebrities that I took a look at. But it seemed to bear out with maybe a little surprises for me. So, you guys have any questions?
No, it surprises me how much of this is cultural, though. Like in all of these, and all of the ones that you've. We were actually talking last night. I was talking with somebody about when the hearing voices. I can't remember which one that was, but it's considered a mental illness unless it's cultural, and that still boggles my mind because I'm like, so then we hear voices, like that's okay, but just in America we deny that we hear them. Like other cultures hear voices and it's okay, but when we hear them, you're crazy. You know what I mean? Like, so we were just talking about that last night, and actually how interesting all of these were. So you're being talked about. I hope your ears were burning.
They were. They fell off and we're on fire on the floor to regrow new ones.
But that, it kind of makes me think that a lot of the ostracization, oh, you're crazy, we're going to label you, we're going to medicate you, is just society putting rules and brakes on who we are,
The way that I've come to see it, especially doing this series, is that you've got Capricorn energy, which is the ruler of society, essentially. It's the one that has to keep the trains running on time. It's the top of the chart, the top of the mountain. Your CEO, I've made it. Earth energy. And Taurus is kind of its work horse, and so is Virgo, really. So all the earth signs get away with a lot more without being diagnosed. The other signs, not so much. The water signs, which are the opposite, if you think about Capricorn's opposite is Cancer. The feminine energy has been thrown under the bus for a long time, devalued, right? Your empathy, your feelings. There's no crying in baseball. What are you doing? There's no room for emotion on the corporate board.
Yeah.
Right? It's just absolutely dismissive in a way that all of the Cancerian energy needs to rise up and say, excuse me, give me your ear. You're coming over here. Look at the mess you made of society. So that's kind of the counterbalance that we're starting to see more and more now with like the valuation of stay-at-home mothers, for example. Like being like, well, why is it not seen as like you're doing anything when it's like this huge value to society? Right? It doesn't have a monetary equivalent. It's not even taken into account. In fact, it can be a detriment, even though we know that raising children, having that mother presence there makes them way more well-adjusted and less likely to be a sociopathic CEO. Right? Or the Tauresian energy that is very much go in and make the donuts, one foot in front of the other. I like the finer things in life. I like to be taken care of. So I'm going to go along with what Master Capricorn says, right? But sometimes I don't. Like the lower end of Taurus can be very like fixed and get into trouble in some of these ways we discussed. No, it's very stubborn, right? And Virgo kind of, I don't know, Virgo double dips a little bit, and that's very Mercury, right? Mercury is hermaphroditic. Double dipping. So on the one hand, they can make the donuts every day. They can have the practical aspects, the earth energy, but it's also ruled by Mercury, which is mischievous and will go against the grain and upset the apple cart and have a little bit of fun. So Virgo sometimes that's your in to breaking the status quo triangle, basically. But all the rest of them, they get thrown under the bus, misunderstood. The fire energies are not allowed to just be fiery and do their thing and passionate. It's like, no, we don't have a place for that. Maybe you can like play those sports over there. But other than that, you got to keep it together in these very like, concrete ways. And so the majority of the disorders that we've discussed so far in the series have been the other signs. You know, with some that deal with a lot of control, we'll get Saturn coming up.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I think like one or two had Capricorn prominent. But it was more like you're overstepping your bounds and being overly controlling. And that's only allowed in these instances. You know, how many times did it come up where it's like, well, you can be an arsonist for these other reasons and you're considered crazy, but if you do it for money, that's not considered a disorder. It's literally the case of pyromania. They make an exception for burning things down for money. Not because the voices in their head told you to do it. That gets you in the disorder. So it's a valid point, Angela.
Yeah.
Is my point. It's exactly right. Who makes the rules? And who makes the rules is Capricorn, order, Saturn, structure. Order dictates what disorder is.
Yeah.
Of course, it makes sense, but it also, to me, high vibing Capricorn understands the responsibility it has being on that mountaintop. Yeah, you got there. Yeah, you walked every step of it and you were hardcore, right? You've been through probably a lot to get where you are, but you're also privileged to be up there. And what takes down mountains is water, earthquakes. There are things that will take you down. Wind over time, right? You can be broken down. And so like having that responsibility of, yeah, you've got that mountaintop view and you can see all the signs. Well, why not work with them? You know, understand that hearing the voices is a shamanistic thing. Or being a, having these borderline characteristics. Oh, we see somebody that's struggling with their emotions and their depth. There's a scorpionic shamanistic spiritual path that can help them greatly. Here you go. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Not put them in jail. Get them out of here. And while you're in jail, make some stuff for us,
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, free labor.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap things up. So thank you for joining me, Angela.
Absolutely.
And we'll have links to where people can find you and Sarah. Sarah had to duck out of the thing just a little bit ago, but I'll have links for everything below. And next week will be the last one in the series, which is narcissistic personality disorder. So we're going right at the the most controversial of them all.
Interesting.
So join me for that. And like, share, comment, subscribe, all of those things. It really helps out the channel and helps this information get to people who might benefit from it. So I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.